Welcome to Empower Everybody. Thank you for joining us this morning, where we meet with our top producers and executives in the business to gain some insights and learn some strategies and get some inspiration. Today we've got Jeff Novotny with us, who is a VP and branch manager of our Gaithersburg branch. Jeff's been in the business now for 9 years and has just finished his 9-month at First Heritage, So thank you for that. Prior to joining First Heritage, you spent your majority of your career at another mortgage company, another lender, where you produced over $500 million in loan volume and helped nearly 1,200 families during that time, which is pretty awesome. So that's very cool. You've been recognized since 2019 as a major mortgage publications, as a top originator with Scotsman, top 1% mortgage originators in America, National Mortgage News, Washingtonian, and President's Club. So that's a lot of stuff in a short period of time.
Making me blush.
And outside of work, 2 kids, right?
2 kids, yep.
Stay busy, active in sports and
coaching.
A
lot of coaching.
Very good. Very cool. Well, awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So talk to me. How did we get started in this business? How did we get here?
Whew. Well, I will tell you that everybody has a very unique story because not many of us have actually gone to college or school to get into mortgages, right?
Very true.
Some people do home finance, but not everybody gets into the business school or anything like that to do mortgages. Right. So I started off my career. Let me back up a second. The barrier to entry to get into mortgages, I'm just gonna tell you, it's pretty hard.
Right.
And unless you know someone, it is very, very difficult because not a lot of companies I have found want to invest in somebody coming from scratch, taking that chance, taking that risk, providing the training, in the hope that a couple years from now that person might actually end up being good or that they'll stick with it.
Right.
So I found that very, very, very quickly as I got into this. And I started it right out of college, not in lending actually, but in the insurance industry.
Okay.
And I've actually known Steve Lagana since I was, I think, 19.
Okay.
He was part of the graduate trustees board that installed me as chapter president of my undergraduate fraternity.
Okay.
Most of the folks that I knew that were mentors in the fraternity were successful and they were in the mortgage industry. To not have any of that nepotism, I actually went a different direction.
Right.
But I did reach out to Steve right when I graduated and I said, hey, I'm in the insurance business. I heard lenders are a great referral source. Would you give me an opportunity? And he said, I am way too high up in the chain to ever refer you anything. But he got me connected to my first manager, actually, and we'll get to that in a second, in the lending industry, but Chad Loeb. And he ended up becoming a really close referral partner of mine in my branch in the insurance world. Well, about 10 years into being in insurance, I decided I was either going to leave and start an insurance brokerage or just potentially just get out of the industry altogether.
Okay.
Long story short, ended up not going down the route of opening up in a brokerage, but made the pivot to lending. And it was not a very easy one, to say the least. Part of what helped me have success early in my career here is that I came into the lending world with a ton of Fortune 100 experience.
Okay.
And in the insurance world, if they're known for anything, they're known for training and developing. And I had the opportunity to really cut my teeth at a Fortune 100 company from a sales, from a marketing, leadership, management, organization, you name it, was given some really great tools to have success, regardless of what I was going to do. And so when I had that opportunity to potentially open up an insurance brokerage, I built out a business plan, probably 30 or 40 pages, had a prospectus for 1 year, 3 year, 5, all the way up to 15 years out for what, if I did open up that brokerage, what my future would look like. Okay. Decided not to go down that route. A lot of different reasons over a cocktail at a President's Club. Maybe I'll get into that. But at the end of the day, didn't go that route. Okay. But decided that I wanted to get back into more of what I was passionate about, which is helping out people. Training, coaching, developing, all those different things. And I tweaked my business plan that I had put together and just made it for the lending world. And so again, differentiates me a little bit is that I really came into this with a business owner mindset without having to have all of the risk associated with potentially failing. But reached out to a couple of my mentors in the fraternity at that time, had a really nice opportunity to come on to Chad Loeb's branch, my former company, and really focused on what would this look like if I failed, and more so, what would this look like if I succeeded? And the upside of this industry, most of us will tell you that all of the good days far outweigh any of those bad days. And I think it's really important for anybody that has just started out in this career. We are in some really challenging times.
Sure.
Inventory shortage, rates not being quite as friendly and all those things. But the good times really outweigh any of those bad times. And so came in with the idea and mindset that failure was not an option. Very hard going from a kind of a salary and a commission role to 100% commission.
Right.
But if you have that mentality, you got to go out there and hunt. You got to go out there and find your food, and it really can change your mindset.
You're making a leap, so you need to be prepared for that leap and land on both feet. And you've prepared yourself.
Yep.
You've taken all those steps. I know that, obviously in that short period of time, you've done a lot of great things and have seen a lot of success already. I know building relationships is super important to you. How do you navigate that? How do you keep that your main focus?
Ooh. So I would tell you that if you're going to, and especially because we do have some younger tenured LOs, and I've had some great opportunity with some really phenomenal future leaders of First Heritage, that it's about building your business in a way that is very authentic to you.
Right.
And so we're going to get into, I think, building a team at some point, but surrounding yourself with people that you know, like, and trust. If you can do business in an area that is geographically close to where you work and where you live, it makes it easier to get more engaged in the things that you do. But relationships are the bedrock and cornerstone of anyone in this industry's successful career. But it's about figuring out a way to develop those relationships that is pretty easy and comfortable, if you will. And so that could be if you are involved in athletics, if you're involved in coaching, do some things centered around that. If you live in a community, if you give back to religious organizations, whatever that might look like, get yourself involved in platforms that make it easy and comfortable and authentic to be able to market to those groups. And a very key thing, especially coming out of college and getting into consultative sales, I think most places start with, who do you know? And I'm like, I just graduated college. All my friends are broke and all this stuff.
Sure.
I don't feel comfortable going after family. And if you're only hiring me for that, I got the wrong connections for you. But the idea is, if you can put yourself in a position to no longer just be a salesperson that sells, but a professional that provides, you can really flip the script, because I feel like I have an opportunity to help a lot of people. Now, whether or not everybody takes advantage of that advice, or
you're an educator too.
What we're trying to do for them as they go through the home buying experience, it's very easy to talk to folks about what that could look like and why working with us, First Heritage, Novotny Lending Team, myself, what the differentiator could be.
Yeah, no, I love that. I mean, I think the takeaway for me through a lot of that is what you're not just offering your lending service, you're offering a relationship service, right? There's so much more into building that than just providing the loan. So that's awesome. I love that.
Yeah, the follow-up piece to that would be, I was told very early in my career, become a connector.
Sure.
And you want people to not just view you as someone that does loans, but that you can connect them to anything, whether it's you need the repair person, whether you need insurance, whether you need X, Y, Z, you name it, professional. And so put yourself in a position where you have a raving fan base. And it's very hard to do that with every client. But if you can have that be part of your focus, it can really make a big difference in what your career looks like and how rewarding it is to have really loyal clients.
Sure.
I was told very early that you're not going to know much about what you do in your craft until you get to 100 loans.
Okay.
And so I set out very early to get to my 100 loans as quick as possible. And it took me about a year and a half to get to 100 loans. And I will tell you that I'm still learning on every single loan that I do. Sure. If you have an ego in this business, which again, most of us will have some type of chip on our shoulders, but you need to approach this as you're just constantly learning. And you want to refine and fine tune that process. And before I ever did any loan, when I was developing the kind of Novotny Lending, team brand, all that stuff, I was a person of one, and my buddies would joke like, how many people are on your team? I'm like, well, it's just me, but we're always looking for great people, haphazardly. But I developed the kind of mindset of home financing excellence, and that was my tagline. I didn't even know how to enter a loan into Encompass. Never done anything before. When I got into the business back in 2016, But it's been something that's really fueled me and helped driven how I approach, whether it's developing a new, LO, which I have some great ones on our team,
Right.
or just how I try to approach the business.
Well, I mean, I just in the period of time that I've known you, it's obvious to me that you are a lead by example kind of guy. You're not just going to say, do this and just watch them do it. You're going to show them how to do it and then do it together and then let them do it, right? There's going to be a process, step flow. So how do you take that mindset into your branch, into your team that you have?
So I've had a philosophy of teach, show, do, hold accountable.
Okay.
And so I'm always willing to teach someone something. I'm going to show them. So if we are trying to build a new relationship with a real estate team or professional, do a seminar for the first time, I'm going to show you how to do it. I'm going to do it for you. That leads into the third one, which is I'm going to actually, you get the meeting. So I'm going to give you the skill set to get that meeting, and then I'll run it for you. And then at some point, I'm going to transition those reins over to you. Mm-hmm. And I did that a lot when I was in the life insurance, world where, I told folks, you get the appointments, I'll sell your first 15 life policies for you. And again, the goal is for me not to do that in the future because I have, other folks to train and develop, and I need some time to myself. But I really enjoy that approach to it. And I do think it has a higher success rate when a manager or a team leader gives that approach to things.
Okay, very good. So when you talk about, focus on excellence, we talk about constant improvement. What are some tools that you like to leverage? Because I feel like I've seen it in you and seen it in your team and from working with your team. What can you explain to us some of those tools that you like to utilize that you find are helpful for you, but then also for building your team as well?
Actually answer one of the questions that you started with, a few diatribes ago, being a lead by example person. Yeah. And I have a couple things that I try to focus on, and that is going to be that constant improvement.
Yep.
And there's going to be process efficiency tools that's are really going to be helpful from that standpoint. We're going to take a look at what my team and I will probably call the hybrid, mortgage banker, loan officer, however you want to phrase that. And I think we'll get into that a little bit later on here. And then ultimately at the end of the day, building a team is not for everybody.
Sure.
And part of the value I think I can add to loan officers here at First Heritage is to figure out if that's something that you want to do, because you don't have to be a branch manager to build a team. And there's different skill sets that you'll need if you're going to have a successful one. And you can certainly talk through what that might look like, but yet always willing to roll up the sleeves. And I will tell you, my brother, who's one of the first producers that joined my team, he'll be the first to tell you I'm not always the smartest person in the room. He'll say that probably a little too quickly, but you will be hard pressed to find somebody that will outwork me.
Sure.
And so how do you work smart and hard? It's a really nice combination and recipe for success in this industry, and really any type of consultative sales. Mm-hmm.
Which is, I'm sure, how you built your toolkit, right? Is trying to finding that
a lot of
toolkit.
Failure.
Well, I'm sure, right? But I mean, that's where you start. You got to stub your toe first and never know to go down that road again. So what have you found that works best for you?
So let's start with how you value time. So if you take two kind of cardinal things that you would really want to latch onto, in order to have really wide success, having something that is scalable and replicatable.
Okay.
So those are two really big focuses. You can do anything when you have one referral, one loan that's closing in a month. You can go to everything. You can be at home inspections, you can go to open houses, you can deliver the gifts at closing. You can do all of those things. And I think it's really important that when you do have fewer clients and you have a lot more time, that you really try to cement those relationships. And there's a couple really great young lenders here at First Heritage that are doing just that. I see all their social media posts. At some point, it's going to be impossible to do that. You're not going to be able to do all of the upfront qualification calls, all of the in process communications, your CD reviews, going to settlement. There's just not enough time. If you want to do 15, 20, 30, whatever your loan per month goal is, and be focused not on the accolades or the money that comes from that, but be focused on how you can help people. Mm-hmm. And so I had that mentality, and our team has the mentality of, we're some of the best lenders in the country. Mm-hmm. we should give that exposure to as many people as possible because they're going to have a better home buying experience having worked with us.
Sure.
And obviously, they're the goals and the accolades and money is not a bad motivator by any means. But then you come into scalability and replicatable. What does that mean? And so if you value time in a way that is it's finite, there's not enough of it, you can only work so many hours without driving yourself absolutely bonkers. So what kind of tools can you do? Right. And so I focused a lot on organization. So the first couple, what I'm going to call a standard operating procedure or an SOP, is going to be centered around how I set up my calendar.
Okay.
Part of that is rules. So if you don't know how to use Outlook rules, you're really missing out. I probably have 400 of them, probably a little too many. But that way they go into different folders. I can trace back to those.
Afterwards, so you can help me get a little organized.
There's a lot of them, okay? A lot of people don't know how to actually do templates for emails within Outlook either.
Yep.
So that might actually just be a separate training that we can get together and 15, 20 minutes could really help some folks be a little bit more organized. But having SOPs is critical. And we have SOPs for many of our things that we're going to do all of the time. And that could be somebody reaching out, an agent has a referral for us. We have a standard, let's get together for your initial, finance strategy call. So we have an email template for that. When somebody has actually already had the call with us, we have an email template for to identify what their 4 or 5 objectives is and the next steps to apply. Okay. And so we've tried to do that with as many things as possible to help be more organized, because that's really the biggest key to doing high volume and working with lots of folks. You have to be organized, otherwise you're gonna lose something.
Sure.
And not to say that I haven't lost track of things at times. Yeah. Most folks have the ability with the technology we have here where they could set up different types of let's call them meetings with clients. Okay. I think via Teams or using Microsoft. We didn't have that capability 8 or 9 years ago. I was a very early adopter of Calendly.
Okay.
And so I have 10 to 15 different calls that each of my team members can have. We embed those links into every communication that we use. Our marketing team has done a really nice job of helping us automate a few of those communications. Mm-hmm. But I realized very quickly that I don't need to have the latency involved with setting up an initial appointment. Okay. Whether that's a coffee meeting with an agent, whether that is that initial call with a referral or a lead, whatever you want to call it. So it's important for me to figure out how can I make that process smoother and easier. Mm-hmm. And one of the ways to do that was, let's send this link out. Most people are busy. They may not even have an opportunity to discuss or respond during their work hours. And so sure enough, at 9 p.m. when I'm sitting down and watching my 30 minutes of bad Netflix, I'll see appointments getting scheduled on my calendar.
That's great.
And so instead of going back 10, 15 communications, which again, my first year in the business, that's what it took, 5, 10, 15 communications just to schedule a meeting.
Right.
And so I was really just thought there had to be a better way to do this. And so again, that's just a little tidbit of, if you're not leveraging some type of tool like that for meeting scheduling, it really can be a game changer.
And your agents utilize that and your borrowers utilize that, everybody?
Yes. And then you I have one brokerage up in the Frederick marketplace. They're not quite as, tech forward.
Sure.
So I try not to use it quite as often in that. So you have to be, malleable with your approach to things, but it's been a really nice key. And if you do work with teams that provide, high volume, mm-hmm. It can be really helpful.
What about any networking groups and things like that? Do you utilize that as well?
Great. I feel like you have a little insight into what I do, and I'm a huge proponent of surrounding yourself with people that you can know, like, and trust. It's again, one of the biggest things that you can do to have success and increase your conversion. But you also want to be that connector. And so if you don't have an established group of it could be estate planning lawyers. It could be who knows what the profession be. Something in the commercial space.
Sure.
I was not a huge fan of BNI or any really group that meets on a weekly basis.
Yeah.
Because when you start looking at the value of time, man, that's a lot. It could be 2 or 3 hours that you spend at that meeting. It might take you 30 minutes, maybe more in traffic, depending on the time of day, to get to that meeting and then get back. Then you have to have what they call a one-to-one. Get to know your group members. And really the meeting itself is more of a ceremonial. Think back to undergrad and going to
Yep.
chapter meetings.
I've been to BNI meetings. Yep.
Yeah. But I always equated that, and it's more of the ceremony. You get all of the action, all of the fun stuff happens outside of that. So usually, if you have a true referral partner, you're not referring business at a meeting over some stale coffee.
Yeah.
And so I thought about there's probably a better way to do this. And so instead of kind of paying into someone else's model, which again also has its own difficulty, but I created what's called ROI Networking Group. And that's one of those things that if you are a loan officer here at First Heritage and you're thinking about getting into a group or be interested in leading one, I think it's a great platform. It's something you can open up whatever chapter you want, so just reach out to me.
Okay.
But it's been really, really helpful. And again, instead of meeting weekly, we meet one time a year. We do some charitable component of it. I think dues are important because it is certainly going to be something to have some skin in the game. But again, I look at a problem or an opportunity, and I really try to find a solution that, again, fits my needs as well as can help as many people as possible. And again, that was a really useful thing for me, and I can tailor back most of my key relationships to that group that I started basically 2 seconds into the industry. So,
Awesome. That's great.
Thanks.
So tell me, because I feel like I remember you mentioning another unique way of networking that you and your team do.
yeah, absolutely. So this is mainly because we're all married and we don't want to piss off our wives too much, but you can only go to so many happy hours, especially when you start having kids sports and you're coaching and all those things. So we wanted to, and this was about 1.5 years ago, we centered something around health and wellness. And if you haven't played pickleball, I'm not an avid pickleball player. You can just look at me walking down the hallway. But pickleball is one of those things. It's one of the fastest growing sports. Pretty much anybody, doesn't matter what your age is. You can be 5 years old, 85 years old.
Correct.
Everybody in
it
between
has taken
can,
off. That
can
is
play.
for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so we had a pickleball pro come out. We invited a lot of our partners and some of our top clients out to an event. Everybody loved it.
That's cool.
And so the whole idea of getting behind something that is health and wellness related has been huge for us. And so this was probably December, not this past one, but the one before that. We said, let's just do a monthly meetup and see what the heck happens. And so we kind of partnered up with Bill Dinkers on the Maryland side. There's pickleball
cool.
establishments popping up
Sure.
everywhere nowadays.
Yeah.
And so it's the third Wednesday monthly real estate professional pickleball meetup. And Kevin, Michael, my
still
team.
coffee and donuts. We were playing pickleball.
We're playing pickleball. So my team members have landed some of their top partners.
That's awesome.
With that event. It's a way to get anybody in the industry. I've met some fantastic lenders that I'm trying to recruit to First Heritage from that event. We have insurance professionals, architects, you name it. They come out to it. And our marketing team has really gotten behind this effort. And John and the crew have come out and done videos at a couple of the events.
That's awesome.
And we got a nice site, that's a sub page from our team page here. And so that's something, again, if you're looking for a unique way to kind of get involved and in front of agents, that's outside of just having a happy hour or doing some type of seminar or brokerage.
Right.
It's fantastic. Everybody comes away with some
Creative,
good content.
fun.
If you can make it, you make it. If you can't, you can't.
Yeah.
We probably average 30 to 35
That's cool.
agents and partners at the event each month. So if you are interested in that, I'm happy to give
I
you
love that.
the ins and outs, the SOP to create that.
I love that. That's very great.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, something I wanted to kind of circle back what you'd mentioned before we talked about networking and different tools is you'd mentioned the hybrid mortgage banker.
Yes.
Can you tell me more about that? Because I don't think I've ever heard that.
I'm probably not the person that has coined
Terminology
this. I'm
before.
sure there's a lot of think tank folks that have. But the idea, and I guess to break it down, I came from a more of an old school mentality, especially coming from insurance. You hear insurance, you think about the person in the trench coat knocking on the door. It wasn't quite that. It was a little bit more technologically advanced, but it's about relationship building.
Okay.
And one of the key things that I have kind of focused on that I think that this industry misses, outside of mortgage training, we don't do a ton of sales training. So we're hoping that people have the ability to understand someone's objection, get past it. But it's about relationship building. And I think that there has been a time and place in this industry where that could sustain your career. You have a following of people that really appreciate that type of experience, and they're willing sometimes to pay a little bit more to have a better experience. I think that time of only being able to focus on relationship building, consultative sales, it's a little bit past us. And I think it's going to be a big part of how folks have success in the future. But if that's the only way that you have built your business and you're not willing to change with the times and leverage technology,
Right.
it's going to be a little bit tough. The same vein, we saw as soon as refinances went away, any of those companies that were just focused on direct to consumer, only using leveraging technology, which I would call them more of like a fintech company that happens to be doing mortgages, they don't exist anymore, some of those companies, or they exist in a very, very different capacity. And so if you are only kind of living and dying in this industry by having the best rate, the lowest rate, the quickest way, and only leveraging technology, but not having a great professional, I think there's a time and place. Refinance booms are probably the place for that type of experience because a lot of consumers don't care too much. But for anybody that's going to have a sustained career in this mortgage space, you have to be purchase driven. And more specifically, I was told very early, if you can really cultivate a following with folks that are in the conforming loan space, you will always have a career. Now, the conforming loan space has just continued to increase and increase and increase. Right. I think it was 417 when I first got in the business. And so we're basically double that almost at this juncture. So it's important to recognize that there's a time and place for both of those. But I don't think going forward, you can really have true sustainable success by being isolated or siloed in either way. Right. So my hybrid, mortgage banker, mortgage loan officer, whatever you want to call it, is the idea of combining both of those. So if you can really perfect the ability to connect, build relationships with leveraging technology, I think that you can have a vibrant career for many, many decades, regardless of what AI and what technology and all the different things that some of us can get a little bit scared or whatever you want to call it, a little anxiety here or there with some of the advances. But I do think that most people, and all the stats are out there, they will start their journey online. It's easy. You don't have to deal with a human. You can do research. There's so much information out there. Part of our objective as a really good mortgage professional is to cancel out the noise. We need to figure out what is a tailored solution based on someone's needs to get them to the finish line for the most expensive financial decision that most of our clients that we come across will ever make. Right. And again, I think if you can combine really adept skills in both of those capacity and be that hybrid mortgage banker, mortgage loan officer, you're going to win out.
And providing the personal touch,
Absolutely.
Right? And being able to give that one-on-one and not just using technology.
Absolutely.
So, you're going to use your hybrid mortgage banker model to use that technology side, put the personal touch into it. So how do you, as a leader and a branch manager, how do you use all your 4 pillars is what you were saying, right? Your focus, your hard work, your leveraging of tools, your hybrid model, and take that and to build a powerful team?
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
Well, whether or not it's a powerful team, that's probably yet to be determined. But I think we have, I view us almost as like an iceberg. You can just see the tip of it right now, or a wave that hasn't even begun to crest. That idea where I think where my personal business, where the LOs that are on our team, where they can take their career going forward, especially with the combination and support that we've had, which we've never experienced to this extent until we came over to First Heritage. We really have a high ceiling for achievement here. And so if you're an LO, and again, I'm differentiating the branch manager role from the team leader role. Sure. And my first opportunity to be a branch manager in this industry, I'd done it for many years in the insurance world, was when I came over here. The team leader role is very personal. And I think a key to that is making sure that you surround yourself with the right people. And the right people is going to be a different definition for anyone that's going to pursue that. The biggest thing that I learned early in a sales career, getting into leadership role, is that people aren't you. And that can sometimes be a bad thing, but I view it really as a good thing. And so when I'm putting together a team, I need to have folks that have complementary skill sets.
Sure.
And so my brother is a very, very big critical thinker. Sometimes as the middle brother, he may just want to challenge what it is that I'm saying, but it helps us get to a better solution when you have different viewpoints. If we all just thought the same and marched to the same beat of a drum, it's not going to be as impactful, and we're probably not going to have the best solution. from that standpoint. When I think about Kevin, who joined our squad as a producer, he came in from kind of new construction sales on the real estate side, and he had done a ton with social media, a ton with video content, and he's challenged me over the years to get more and more involved in that, and he's landed some of his top partners from doing a couple podcasts. And so he's really given me some insight into, well, we should probably have that be part of our kind of business model going forward. When I think about operations team members, Dave King has been with me for basically a year and a half into this. Probably got him a little too premature. I didn't know what I was doing quite yet. I trained him on a bunch of marketing stuff and not necessarily loan related things, but having people that you really want to grow with and have success through, it's critical. And it's different than being a branch manager. I spend more hours than I would care to ever want to admit on phone and Teams, on appointments with team members. And I've certainly probably sacrificed a little bit of my own personal production over the last 8 or 9 years. But you have to really be passionate about pouring into others. Yeah. And if you are, it can be super rewarding because sales is really lonely. Right? If you're out there, you could be top in your craft, but you're still going to every event by yourself. You're still prospecting every agent by yourself. And so when you have the right fit and you want to grow together, you can do things more as a cohesive unit. And so we've done a lot of our team marketing, whether it was a pickleball event, holiday parties, going to chamber events, G-Car, F-Car, you name it. We try to do things together. And you ultimately get the economies of scale. And when we're on the team, we all use the same platforms. So it's the same email structure. It's the same, and I don't know if everybody organizes quite as insane as I do, but the idea is that I can take these things, it becomes scalable. It's easier to replicate, which I'd focused on a few questions ago. Right. But again, if you are going to start a team, it can be very rewarding. There's growing pains and a little bit more time consuming at times, but it is really fun to have success through others and to see someone that you've poured into have an accolade, and to see my brother
grow
also achieve some kind of national recognition in the last couple of years. And to see Kevin become a rising star with Washingtonian last year. Those are pretty proud moments, almost like being a work parent from that standpoint. And then we've added some really key players to our team since coming to First Heritage. And again, it's one of those where if you are passionate about giving back and having success through others, being a team leader is a really phenomenal way to take your career. If you don't like doing that, or if you don't like working side by side, or if you don't want to share any of the secrets in your playbook, probably not the best route to take your career. But if it is the opposite, it could be a phenomenal thing for you to be able to give back and help grow First Heritage.
Right. Well, I'll tell you what, just the 9 months you've been here, just the amount of things you've already taught me, and I see you working with the other branch managers and other leaders in the company, and you're going to do some amazing things. It's pretty cool.
Hope so.
Thank you for everything.
Absolutely.
In the last 9 months and what's to come.
Let's keep it going.
That's right. So last couple questions I have for you is, what is the best advice you've ever heard or received?
Oh, so it's been quite a few things that I have kind of come across in my career.
Best advice, yeah.
So I'm going to give you a couple because I just can't narrow it down.
Right.
It's like
just
when I go get ice cream, I can't just pick one flavor, right?
Okay.
So hard work works.
Okay.
So if you think back to the last couple years and how challenging this industry has been, if you worked hard, if you were willing to roll up your sleeves, put in a couple more hours than the next person, follow up a few more times with that agent than the next person, you still had success.
Right.
If anybody here, whether it's a First Heritage or just in the industry, can look back to think, could I have done more? If you could say that, that's probably why production was a little bit lower.
Got it.
And it's okay also. A lot of people are coming off record years coming out of COVID with refis and all those things. And so you do need to take a little bit of a break. But at the same time, hard work works. And a couple other things that really struck with me, someone told me early in my career, evaluate your performance on a quarterly basis.
Self-evaluation.
So I'm coming from insurance where we looked at weekly per capita, and I'm trying to define success in lending on a weekly basis. I'm a failure. I'm a failure for many, many months. So don't do that. But if you look at it quarterly And most of our crew has really gravitated towards that idea where you're probably going to have a really good month in a quarter. You're probably going to have a pretty mediocre month. And you're probably not going to have that great of a month, depending on seasonality and when that month falls in a quarter. But if you average it out over that quarter, it's probably going to be pretty good.
Sure.
And then never let those highs be too high or the lows be too low. And I'll end you with a really good piece of advice that I don't know if you'll actually remember telling this to me, but I was an undergrad. Steve Lagana was giving the speech at one of our annual dinners, and he told me to never apologize for holding someone to their potential. And so it's been really important for me over the years to be able to think through that, really be unwavering in terms of holding folks to what their caliber, what their potential is. And even if they don't quite hit that, not being apologetic because I know what their potential could be. And then 3 driving things for myself that I've just kind of really utilized over the years. So I think it's on my Facebook. I don't know. At some point I did you have your intro or whatever, but being passionately impatient, being politely persistent, and being coachably independent. And so I try to exude those things in terms of how I approach sales and leadership, as well as, all of our team members have different skill sets, but all of them have those 3 characteristics and traits. And so that's probably the longest answer you'll get for that question, but I couldn't just pick one.
That's great. No, that's great.
Couldn't just pick one.
That's great. Well, on the flip side of that coin then, what's some of the worst advice?
Oh, well, there's a lot of failure in sales. Just in general. You have to have rhino skin and all that stuff, thick skin. So I don't view any of the things that I've gotten in the business world as bad advice. I will tell you that my parents telling me to clean my plate growing up has probably been the worst advice I've ever gotten, because I continue to do that. And I pick the food off the kids, and that's why I don't have abs. So being self-deprecating here a little bit, but probably the worst advice I've gotten.
That's great. That's great. Well, on that note then, if you were able to tell your younger self something that from your life experience, work experience, what would be that thing that you would tell your younger self?
Ooh. Well, I think on the just finance side of things, aside from getting into lending much earlier and maybe following some of my mentors as an undergrad, going straight into the mortgage space. But even then, I think a lot of my experience I got in Lean Six Sigma, Model Branch, and all those things came from the insurance world, so it gave me a little different perspective. But I would certainly say try not to sell any of your houses that you've ever lived in, especially if you are not going to make too much money off of them. I've seen the power of real estate investing, and I made the mistake once of looking at how much all of the houses that I had previously owned are worth.
Sure.
So I would certainly say if you could do that, that would be a smart decision.
To invest.
Yes.
Invest early.
Invest early. Young. That could be the stock market as well, and index funds and all that stuff. But,
I love it.
Yeah.
Very good. Awesome. Well, thank you. I appreciate your time today. And I know myself personally, I've certainly learned some things from you already. So I'm sure others will see the same.
Perfect.
So
thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks, guys.